There was a young girl named Annie. She was an orphan, constantly moving from one foster home to another. When she was 9 years old, she was moved to a home ran by a man who all the children called Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson already had 3 sons of his own, and he cared for a little girl named Tammy. Mr. Wilson was mean. He drank a lot, and he was always drunk and passed out, so there was not much supervision in this household. And when he slept, the older boys would touch Tammy and Annie. When they told Mr. Wilson, he not only didn't believe them, but he got angry. So angry, he pulled off his belt and beat the girls, saying they were ungrateful and liars. He left whelps all over their bodies and told them if they ever lied on his boys again, he would do worse. After that, they were quiet, but the abuse didn't stop. The boys then did whatever they wanted. They bullied them, beat them, had their way with them. One night, Annie woke up to Tammy screaming. One of the boys was on top of her. Annie didn't know what to do, so she just started screaming too. And when the boy let her up, Tammy started running, tripped, and fell down the stairs and broke her neck. When Annie saw Tammy's body and how her head was twisted all the way backwards, she panicked and started screaming uncontrollably. Then when the police arrived, they asked, "What happened?" Mr. Wilson and his boys told the police Tammy and Annie were horseplaying, and Tammy fell down the steps. At this point, Annie was in pure shock by now. She was unable to speak and also afraid if she did what the consequences would be, so she stayed quiet. After that, things only got worse. She was not only now the only one. Now every night, one of the boys would sneak into her room. Until one night, Mr. Wilson came instead. He was drunk, stank of alcohol, and then he had his way with little Annie. The next day was Annie's 10th birthday, so she ran away. She was picked up by a strange man that saw her walking. He asked her, did she need a ride? Where were her parents? He told her she could stay with him. Annie didn't want to go back to Mr. Wilson's, so she agreed. And no surprise, he took advantage of little Annie too. But he even took it a step further. He made little Annie sell her body. And Annie was an orphan, so no one cared. Mr. Wilson never even came to look for her. Then one day, Annie was getting in the car with a random man set up by her pimp when the elderly lady walked up and took her by the hand. She told the would-be customer to leave because she was with her now. Annie's pimp stood up and asked, "What's going on?" But as soon as he looked the old lady in the eyes, he became fearful, stood down, and became humble. The old lady took Annie to what appeared to be an abandoned cabin in the woods. She told Annie, "You're safe now. You won't ever be abused by men again." Finally, Annie felt safe. Now she could just relax and be a kid. Most days, she was left alone to play and explore in the woods. The old lady would teach her about plants, herbs, and how to make medicines and put together potions. What she was doing was she was teaching Annie the ways of the witch and the art of witchcraft. She was also taught all men were evil, and because of their sexual lust, they could never be trusted. And since Annie's only interaction with men had been bad, her hatred only grew from her teachings. She was told she had been chosen and was backed by spirits and unseen forces, and her task was to inspire and to lead a new generation of witches, one that would rule the world. Then years went by, and now Annie was 19 years old. The old lady's health started failing. She told Annie, "It's time." Soon as night fell, they walked into the woods, sat by the fire, and began to meditate. Then at exactly 3 a.m., the old lady began to speak in tongues. She rocked back and forth. Now she began to summon spirits of her ancestors burned at the stake for practicing witchcraft. The winds began to pick up. The fire began to burn brighter. Now the entire forest came alive. You could hear wolves howling in the background and terrifying screams from the souls of women burned at the stake. Annie was now put into a deep trance-like state. Then, without warning, everything just stopped, and there was an eerie quiet, and a voice whispered, "Me too." The spell had been set into motion. Annie woke up the next morning, alone, laying face down in the forest. She ran back to the cabin, but it was no longer there. There was no signs of the old lady anywhere. It was like she never existed. Annie wondered, was it all a dream? Then she felt a tingle on her left wrist. When she looked down at it, she noticed strange markings and a tattoo of an owl. And when she looked up, she saw a large owl sitting in the trees above her. They made eye contact. She immediately knew it wasn't a dream, and the unseen forces were really with her. Annie then began to make her way out of the forest, and her journey began. The rise of the witches. The curse of Me Too.